What's up, guys? Welcome to Whiskey. My name is Jeff. Now, this is a channel where I offer my thoughts and opinions on a specific whiskey, and if you stick around at the end, I'll be giving it a score as well. If that sounds interesting, hit subscribe down below. And with that out of the way, why don't we jump into our review? Today, we're looking at the Glen Scotia 15-year-old. Stick around. So we're back with another Glen Scotia today. I recently did a review of the double cask, which is their no age stated entry-level expression. And today it is the 15-year-old's turn. This one is kind of a fan favorite. I think it's generated quite a bit of buzz over the last few years since it came out. And I would say this combined with the no age stated Victoriana are probably the two biggest superstars of Glen Scotia's lineup. So we've got a pretty full range from Glen Scotia. We have the double cask, we have the Victoriana, we have obviously the 15-year-old. There's also an 18-year-old and a highly coveted 25-year-old. The brand also puts out a series of single cask options as well as some limited releases, many of which are really good and worth seeking out if you can find them. But of course, we're not here to talk about those ones today. We're here to discuss our 15-year-old. This was released in 2015 as part of a revamped core range. It has been matured in American oak barrels, so bourbon barrels, and it's been very well received. Not just because people like the whiskey, the price point has been a big selling point for this one. This is by far the cheapest 15-year-old that you're going to find from the Campbelltown region. As I mentioned, this is almost entirely matured in American ex-bourbon barrels, but you will hear whispers here and there that this has gotten a quick sherry finish, and master blender Michael Henry himself actually did confirm that at one point. He said this was given a 2-month finish in sherry casks, apparently first fill Oloroso, and that was to give the whiskey some added sweetness. So what we have here is an age-stated bourbon matured whiskey with a sherry finish. All of that sounds good to me, so why don't we hop into a review of this one, see what this whiskey is all about, and in the meantime, if you can kindly leave a like down below, that'd be greatly appreciated. So for the most part, we do have decent specs here. This one has a healthy ABV of 46%. It's going to be non-chill filtered. Up until recently, I thought that across the entire Glen Scotia range, they gave us naturally presented whiskeys, but apparently that's not the case. They use E150A or caramel colorant in a series of their expressions, including our 15-year-old here, which is unnecessary and unfortunate. So we have our unnatural color here. I think bottle presentation here is fine. It's not spectacular, but it's decent. I do think it's a step up from the double cask. I prefer the darker color scheme on the label. We have our big embossed logo at the base here. Overall, decent look. Score is going to be 3.5 out of 5. It tells us it's been matured in American oak barrels, non-chill filtered here on the back, which is nice to see. Of course, they're not going to brag about being artificially colored. Beyond that, we've got some tasting notes here. Apparently, our whiskey is rich and smooth, which is what I hope to be someday. Overall, I think it's a decent look. No real gripes here. So I first tried this whiskey without knowing anything about it, and right off the bat, I thought I detected some sherry notes in here. Now, of course, most websites are going to tell you this is entirely matured in ex-bourbon barrels because that's the only aspect of the maturation that the brand advertises. But I'm glad I turned out to be right, at least according to one source online, so take all of this with a grain of salt. The master blender himself did confirm that we had a quick sherry finish on this whiskey, which makes sense to me because I do detect notes like red fruits and cinnamon in here that are generally associated with sherry. Sherry aside, the standout flavors in this whiskey are going to be from those busy bourbon barrels. We have a very bourbon forward profile here. We have lots of woods, vanillas, creams, cherries. We got cola notes in here. I especially like the vanilla in this. It's very natural. It never presents itself as like this cloying or artificial vanilla note. It's more natural. It's more like vanilla pods or something. The wood in this is also fantastic. This is a full, rich, woody profile. It's particularly oaky for a 15-year-old, but despite being a very oak forward profile, it never upsets the balance or dries out your mouth, which is good. Because one of my pet peeves is an over oaked whiskey. A very heavy oak influence is not always a good thing. So yeah, we have some really nice vanilla notes in here. We have a nice woody influence. Then we have the cream, the cola, the brown sugar, and the cherries. All of these things come together nicely. So we have these big bourbon flavors and a subtle sherry touch worked seamlessly into a very polished Campbelltown profile with a base of malt, salt, and earth. And all of that does sound very exotic, but actually, this is not a whiskey that's going to blow your mind. It's pretty straightforward. In fact, it's actually kind of predictable. This is gentle, it's accessible, it's definitely not taking any risks. As I said, it's a very polished whiskey, so if you're looking for a rugged, unpretty Campbelltown profile, you're not going to find it here. We do have some unique flavors at work, but they unravel in a very by-the-numbers kind of way. Regardless, this still works, and I do think they chose some pretty good casks to mature their whiskey in. So yeah, love the bourbon influence here, and while I would take a scotch over a bourbon 99 out of 100 times, apologies to my American viewers, I really like a lot of those sweet, rich notes that bourbons can lend to a scotch, and I think all of that is done to great effect here. I think all of the components are well chosen and well integrated. So my score here is going to be 87. I like the flavors in this, and I find it to be endlessly drinkable. And you know, it's funny, I was actually going to go a little bit lower. I was initially going to score at 86, but I bumped it up just because I cannot stop reaching for this stuff. This stuff is so Moorish. And I've talked about stuff like reachability in the past. It's usually not something we factor into our whiskey scores, but maybe we should. Because there's a lot of whiskeys out there that I might score highly, but when you're in the thick of a session, you don't actually reach for them that often, maybe once in a blue moon. And that's not to say they aren't top shelf stuff, but yeah, I'm just saying reachability is a thing. Luckily, this whiskey has it in spades. This bottle did not last long on my shelf. So this is about as unchallenging as Campbelltown gets, but it's delicious nevertheless. I love the bourbons, the creams, the cola notes in here. There's a lot of stuff going on. Now, it is no masterpiece. As I said, it is a kind of by-the-numbers whiskey, but it's very well made, and it's got such a fun profile that this is just a whiskey that I love coming back to. Definitely some good value on this one. This is an affordable whiskey for a 15-year-old, and I don't just mean that within the context of Campbelltown whiskeys. I mean that within the context of the whiskey world on the whole. For a 15-year-old, the price tag doesn't hurt with this one. Not only that, we do get an age statement, and we get some quality flavors. This is my favorite value buy from the Glen Scotia line. It's going to be more expensive than your double cask, but definitely worth the price bump over that one. It's cheaper than your Victoriana. It's cheaper, obviously, than your 18-year-old. Those ones are good too, but as a value buy within the line, I'd say this is the best deal. It's a great bang for buck whiskey. Alright, that's going to be it for me today, guys. Thank you very much for watching. As always, hit subscribe down below, click that little bell icon, and of course, smash the like. Now, I do want to hear from you. Have you tried our Glen Scotia 15-year-old? How did you feel about it? And finally, down in the comments, let me know what you want to see me review next, and I'll keep it in mind for my upcoming videos. Bye, guys.